October 25th, 1415, St. Crispin's Day. Dawn breaks over the muddy fields of northern France as 6,000 French knights thunder across the battlefield, their steel armor gleaming despite the overcast sky. They're charging toward what should be an easy victory. 500 exhausted English soldiers, weakened by disease, trapped between two forests with nowhere to run. This is Agincourt, where medieval warfare reaches its bloody climax. But let's change one thing. Hidden among the English archers, camouflaged in the tree line, lies something that shouldn't exist for another 600 years. A modern military sniper armed with a Barrett M82A1 anti-materiel rifle equipped with thermal optics and match-grade ammunition. So what happens when 21st century precision meets the age of chivalry? Can one sniper with godlike accuracy change the course of medieval history? Or will the sheer mass of armored cavalry crush everything in its path? Meet our time-displaced warrior. This isn't some weekend hunter with a deer rifle. We're talking about a Tier 1 military sniper trained to standards that would seem like pure magic to anyone from 1415. This operator can put a bullet through a target the size of a dinner plate from over a mile away, calculate wind drift and bullet drop in seconds, and remain invisible to enemies searching desperately for his position. His weapon of choice is a Barrett M82E1, a semi-automatic anti-materiel rifle that fires 50 caliber rounds designed to punch through armored vehicles. Each bullet weighs 750 grains and travels at 2,800 feet per second, carrying enough kinetic energy to stop a charging rhinoceros. The rifle itself weighs 30 pounds and measures nearly 5 feet long, equipped with a high-powered scope that can resolve individual faces at distances where medieval archers couldn't even see human shapes. But here's what makes this truly devastating. While English longbowmen at Agincourt could accurately engage targets at maybe 150 yards on a good day, our sniper can reach out and touch someone at 1,800 yards with surgical precision. That's over a mile of killing range where he remains completely invisible to his targets. Medieval knights charging across that muddy field would have no concept of being hunted from such impossible distances. Against him stands the flower of French nobility. These aren't peasant conscripts or untrained militia. We're talking about professional warriors who spent their entire lives perfecting the art of medieval combat. He's Constable of France. Charles d'Albret commands the finest heavy cavalry in Europe. Knights like Jean Lemangre, called Boucicaut, whose skill with sword and lance is legendary. These men wear the best armor money can buy, crafted by master smiths who've spent decades perfecting their trade. Plate steel thick enough to stop crossbow bolts and sword thrusts, articulated at every joint to allow maximum mobility while providing near-total protection. The terrain tells its own story of impending carnage. A week of October rain has turned the narrow field between Tramecourt and Agincourt into a muddy nightmare. Heavy cavalry that normally thunders across battlefields at 25 miles per hour will struggle to maintain half that speed while sinking into the mire with every step. This creates what modern military tacticians call a fatal funnel, concentrating thousands of targets into a narrow killing zone with limited maneuverability. Here's where medieval warfare meets modern reality in the most brutal way possible. French knights charging across that field expect to face English longbows with an effective range of maybe 200 yards. They're mentally prepared for that final sprint under arrow fire before closing to sword range, where their superior armor and training should dominate. What they cannot possibly prepare for is death arriving silently from distances they cannot comprehend, delivered by a weapon that treats their finest armor like tissue paper. The psychological impact alone would be catastrophic. Imagine being a French knight, surrounded by your brothers in arms, when the man riding beside you suddenly explodes in a spray of blood and metal fragments. No arrow flight to track, no warning, just instant death from an invisible enemy. Then another knight dies, and another, each death seemingly random and inexplicable. Medieval minds have no framework for understanding precision-guided death from over a mile away. Our sniper, meanwhile, operates from a completely different reality. Through his thermal scope, he can see body heat signatures through fog and smoke. His ballistic computer calculates exact firing solutions, accounting for temperature, humidity, and wind speed. Each shot is deliberate, calculated, and devastating. The battle begins at dawn. French trumpets sound the advance as thousands of mounted knights spur their war horses forward. They're expecting a traditional medieval engagement, arrows darkening the sky before steel meets steel in brutal hand-to-hand combat. Instead, they're about to experience the most one-sided slaughter in military history. Our sniper has positioned himself 100 to 200 yards behind the English lines, concealed in dense undergrowth with a perfect field of fire across the entire battlefield. Through his scope, French knights appear as clear as if they were standing 10 feet away. He begins target selection, prioritizing high-value commanders whose deaths will create maximum chaos in enemy ranks. The Constable of France, Charles d'Albret, leads the first wave personally. He's riding a magnificent destrier, his heraldic banners making him easily identifiable even at extreme range. The sniper's crosshairs settle on center mass, accounting for the target's movement across the muddy terrain. He controls his breathing, feels his heartbeat, and squeezes the trigger during his natural respiratory pause. The .50 caliber round covers 200 yards in under 2 seconds. D'Albret never hears the shot. The bullet punches through his breastplate like it's made of cardboard. The massive kinetic energy transfer literally launching him from his saddle. His horse continues charging for several strides before realizing its rider has vanished into red mist. French knights surrounding their fallen commander have no explanation for what just happened. Some suspect English sorcery. Others wonder if God himself has struck down their leader. The psychological shock ripples through their ranks as they struggle to maintain formation, while their horses slip and slide in the increasingly treacherous mud. The sniper doesn't pause to admire his handiwork. He's already acquired his next target, a marshal attempting to rally the wavering advance. Another precisely placed shot, another knight torn apart by forces beyond medieval comprehension. The semi-automatic capability of the Barrett allows him to engage multiple targets in rapid succession, each death appearing random and supernatural to observers. Within minutes, the cream of French nobility is being systematically eliminated from impossible distances. Knights who survived decades of battlefield experience find themselves helpless against an enemy they cannot see, hear, or fight. Their finest armor, crafted to stop swords and crossbow bolts, offers zero protection against modern ammunition designed to penetrate armored vehicles. But even a god of war has limitations. The Barrett carries only 10 rounds per magazine, and reloading takes precious seconds, during which French cavalry continues advancing. More critically, black powder hadn't been invented yet, so the distinctive muzzle flash and thunderous report of each shot creates massive clouds of smoke that reveal the sniper's general position to anyone paying attention. When the smoke clears and the last echoes fade across that muddy field, one thing becomes crystal clear. 6 centuries of military evolution would compress a legendary medieval battle into mere minutes of technological dominance, the flower of French chivalry. Knights who terrorized Europe for generations would face annihilation from an enemy operating beyond their comprehension. But what do you think would happen if we dropped a modern tank crew into the Battle of Hastings? Check out this video to find out. Thanks for watching.